Welcome back to our channel, where we dive into captivating stories designed to help you relax and drift into a peaceful sleep. Today, as always, we'll explore a fascinating tale to wash away the stresses of the day, guiding you toward a deep and restful slumber. Sleep isn't just a time for your body to recharge. It's also a chance for your mind to soar through vibrant stories, transporting you to a world of curiosity and wonder. In today's episode, we'll imagine a gripping scenario. What would happen if glaciers melted? Picture this. If all the massive ice formations on Earth were to vanish, how would our world transform? From rising oceans and submerged lands to unexpected consequences for ecosystems and human life. So relax, close your eyes, and let our storytelling guide you on a mysterious yet inspiring journey. Enjoy the storytelling session and have a wonderful night's sleep. Glaciers are the largest reservoirs of fresh water on the planet, accounting for about 75% of Earth's freshwater supply. Currently, they cover approximately 10% of the Earth's surface. During the last ice age, glaciers covered about 32% of the planet's total surface area. There are two types of glaciers. The first is alpine glaciers, which form on mountain slopes and slowly move down valleys. The second is continental glaciers, or ice sheets, which cover vast regions. The largest glacier still in existence is the Lambert Glacier in Antarctica, measuring about 62 miles wide, 248 miles long, and 8,200 feet deep. The two largest ice masses on Earth, Greenland and Antarctica, account for over 99% of the world's glacial ice. Additionally, according to updated data from the World Glacier Monitoring Service, WGMS, in 2025, global glaciers have lost over 9,000 billion tons of ice from 1961 to 2016, contributing to about 25 to 30% of the current sea level rise. This underscores the critical role of glaciers not only as freshwater sources, but also as sensitive indicators of global climate change. Furthermore, 2025 has been declared the International Year of Glacier Preservation by the United Nations, aiming to raise awareness about their rapid disappearance and its impacts on ecosystems, economies, and communities. But what would happen if all these enormous ice masses melted? Where would the water go? What would happen to the oceans? Would salt water mix with fresh water? In this video, you'll discover what would happen if all the glaciers were gathered into a single mass, which lands would remain if all glaciers melted, what would happen to Antarctica, and finally, what would happen to flora and fauna. How might this massive melting affect the length of a day? These are just a few intriguing facts. So, what would happen if all glaciers melted? The total volume of ice on our planet is estimated to be around 6 to 7.2 million cubic miles. Even for someone with a vivid imagination, it's hard to grasp what this volume looks like. Imagine if we gathered all the glaciers into one place. A layer of ice 3,280 feet thick would cover an area larger than the entire continent of North America. Now, consider what would happen if all that ice melted. Of course, glacier melting doesn't happen overnight. However, the current data we're sharing below is truly striking and concerning. According to the latest research from NASA, in 2025, the global sea level rise rate has doubled over the past 30 years, from 0.08 inches per year in 1993 to 0.18 inches per year in 2024, primarily due to ice melt and thermal expansion of the oceans. Forecasts suggest sea levels could rise an additional 6.6 inches in the next 30 years if current trends continue. Additionally, A 2025 study from Nature indicates that global glaciers lost 273 plus, or minus 16 gigatons, per year from 2000 to 2023, with a 36 plus, or minus 10% increase during that period. In 2019, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, of the United Nations released a scientific report on oceans and ice, which made waves worldwide. The research showed that even small glaciers can contribute to sea level rise nearly as much as Greenland's ice. For example, from 2006 to 2015, Greenland lost about 280 billion tons of ice annually, while other glaciers lost around 220 billion tons. In comparison, Antarctica lost 155 billion tons of ice over the same period. The average rate of sea level rise in recent years has been about 0.14 inches per year. While this number may seem small, climate changes accumulate gradually and can escalate suddenly. Projections indicate that the rate of glacial melting is likely to increase and accelerate. NASA has also predicted an unavoidable sea level rise of up to 35.4 inches, 0.9 meters, in the near future. Updated NASA data from 2025 shows Greenland losing an average of 267 billion tons of ice per year, while Antarctica loses about 136 billion tons, significantly contributing to the unexpectedly high sea level rise in 2024. A report from IPCC-AR6 and recent updates predict that, under a high-emission scenario, sea level rise could reach 1.6 to 6.2 feet by 2100. Moreover, a 2025 study from Dartmouth University suggests that the worst-case scenarios for polar ice melt may not occur, but the risks remain high. Now, imagine if all glaciers melted overnight. Scientists at the University of California, Irvine, have proposed a hypothetical scenario for such a distant future. They predict that if all of Greenland's ice melted, sea levels would rise by 24.3 feet. If Antarctica's ice melted, sea levels would surge by an additional 190 feet. And if all the glaciers on the planet melted, global sea levels would rise by approximately 213 feet. According to NASA estimates, if all ice on Earth melted, sea level rise could exceed 195 feet, completely reshaping the world's geography. The IPCC predicts Greenland could contribute 3.1 to 10.6 inches to sea level rise by 2100, while Antarctica could add even more if West Antarctica's ice collapses irreversibly. So, which land would remain? Climate change models predict that every coastal region across all continents will be submerged in one way or another. The shape of continents would change dramatically as vast areas of land are flooded. For example, the state of Florida in the U.S. would vanish entirely. The Netherlands, which has fought against sea encroachment for decades, would ultimately lose the battle. Denmark, too, along with much of northern Europe, would be submerged. Venice would finally sink completely. The Caspian Sea would become a true sea. Currently, it is officially a massive lake due to its lack of connection to the ocean. When all glaciers melt, the Black Sea would spill over the eastern Caucasus, creating a new Bosporus Strait to connect with the ocean, nearly doubling its area. China would face severe flooding, losing significant coastal territory. Vietnam and the Philippines will be heavily impacted as their lands are overtaken by the sea. Additionally, major cities like New York, Miami, and Tokyo could be heavily flooded, forcing millions to migrate, according to models from National Geographic and recent studies. in Asia, India, and Bangladesh could lose thousands of square miles of agricultural land, leading to food crises for hundreds of millions of people. Significant changes would occur in the Americas. The Amazon River in Brazil would disappear, replaced by a vast bay, dramatically altering the continent's shape. Similarly, the Parana and Uruguay rivers in the southern part of the continent would turn into a bay, submerging Buenos Aires and inland areas up to at least 62 miles. Compared to other continents, Africa would lose less land. However, this is no cause for celebration, as rising sea levels would increase air temperatures, making life difficult or impossible in most African regions. Additionally, Egypt's Alexandria and Cairo would be inundated by an expanded Mediterranean Sea. As a result of ice melt, a new inland sea would form in Australia, and much of its narrow coastal belt, where most Australians live, would vanish underwater. In Europe, countries like Belgium and Germany would also lose coastal land, while Africa could face increased desertification due to the loss of glacial water sources. Models from NSIC indicate that the highest sea level rise would occur in tropical and mid-latitude regions, severely impacting small islands and densely populated coasts. What would happen to Antarctica? What would we see in its place? According to some predictions, the outlines of the continents would not be entirely unrecognizable. A time traveler to the future could look at a new map of Earth and still recognize the shapes of Australia, the Americas, and Africa. But they would be shocked and confused by what replaces Antarctica, or, more accurately, what's left of it. The familiar shape of Antarctica is an illusion created by the current climate. In reality, even at today's sea levels, if all the ice were removed from Antarctica, leaving only the land, we would see a collection of large and small islands. When all ice caps melt, the region would be flooded or transformed into a vast archipelago. Updated research from 2025 indicates that West Antarctica may be in an irreversible decline, leading to additional meters of sea level rise in the coming century. Data from NASA's GRACEFul mission shows continuous ice loss, with red-orange areas indicating the greatest mass loss. What would happen to the ocean's flora and fauna? Nearly all glaciers of sedimentary origins, containing billions of tons of fresh water. When all this ice melts, the fresh water would naturally mix with the ocean's salt water, reducing its salinity. This desalination would trigger a severe ecological disaster. Some marine plants and animals would go extinct, disrupting the fragile balance of current ecosystems. Certain species would vanish, while others might thrive unexpectedly, potentially sparking a large-scale chain reaction and causing a global ecological catastrophe across both marine and terrestrial ecosystems. As ocean salinity decreases, groundwater salinity would increase. Significant sea level rise would push salt water deeper into groundwater layers, creating salinized soil that makes irrigation and cultivation of most crops nearly impossible. Glacial melt would release nutrients into rivers, lakes, and oceans, boosting phytoplankton blooms, the foundation of the aquatic food chain, but could also cause long-term biodiversity loss. A 2025 study warns that faster-than-expected melting threatens ecosystems, eroding glaciers' unique functions and impacting global biodiversity. The reduction in ocean salinity would also slow or even halt ocean currents. For instance, the Gulf Stream, which warms the air around northern Europe, would cease to exist. Of course, with global warming, the British Isles would not be threatened by cold, but other serious consequences could arise. And, of course, there are smaller side effects of glacial melting. You should know that ice has accumulated not just over thousands, but hundreds of thousands, even millions of years. It's no surprise that glaciers have trapped tons of toxins from volcanic eruptions and other environmental disasters. As they melt, these toxins would be released into the oceans and atmosphere, a definite cause for concern. Additionally, other hazardous substances are frozen and stored in permafrost layers. Scientists warn that dangerous chemicals, dormant viruses, and bacteria for which humans have no immunity, or even nuclear waste, could be released if these storage sites are destroyed in the chaos of a global catastrophe. The World Meteorological Organization, WMO, in 2025 warns that glacial melt will trigger cascading impacts on economies, ecosystems, and communities, not just in mountainous regions, but far beyond. The loss of permafrost could release ancient viruses, threatening global health, while disrupting freshwater supply chains. What would happen to the climate in general? Ice melting is not an isolated event, but part of a global chain of processes with severe causes and catastrophic consequences. Climate change will impact ecosystems, human health, livelihoods, food security, water supplies, and economic growth in numerous ways. As this phenomenon accelerates and water encroaches deeper inland, many coastal regions will become uninhabitable. A team of scientists, including anthropologists, ecologists, and climate change experts, compiled a comprehensive warning after extensive research, simulations, and global climate analyses. Their article, titled Future of the Human Climate Niche, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS, garnered global attention. It presents grim and alarming data, predicting that the land area with an average annual temperature exceeding 84 degrees Fahrenheit, 29 degrees Celsius, will increase from 0.8% to 19% of Earth's land surface by 2070. The impact will intensify with the degree of global warming. As a reminder, 84 degrees Fahrenheit is the average temperature of the Sahara Desert. Temperatures will rise not only in remote deserts, but also in densely populated regions with the highest birth rates, such as vast areas of South America, India, Africa, northern Australia, and Southeast Asia, which could become too hot, harsh, and uninhabitable, even before all the ice melts. Recent reports indicate that nearly 40% of glacier volume is at risk of disappearing at current warming rates, leading to mass migration and biodiversity loss. A 2025 study from UNEP highlights that the loss of glacial water could jeopardize $4 trillion in global GDP, impacting agriculture, energy, and urban water supplies. Let's consider the length of a day. It may seem unrelated to ice melting, but global climate change could affect Earth's rotation. Take the Three Gorges Dam in China on the Yangtze River, which slowed Earth's rotation by about 0.06 microseconds, a small but measurable effect. As ice melts, water would shift from the poles to the equator due to Earth's rotation, potentially slowing the planet's spin and lengthening a day by about 1,020 seconds. These extra seconds are not a major concern, as humanity would face far greater survival challenges. NASA confirms that land ice melt would alter Earth's rotation only if water flows into the oceans, slightly lengthening days. However, this impact is minor compared to issues like food insecurity and resource conflicts. Currently, about 40% of the world's population lives near water, at elevations up to 230 feet above sea level. As sea levels rise, coastal cities and entire islands will be submerged. Countries and cities like the Netherlands and Japan could disappear. Their governments have invested billions of dollars in programs to delay the inevitable flood, but sooner or later, 40% of the population will need to move inland, abandoning coastal cities. Habitable lands will become overcrowded, and humanity will face severe overpopulation issues. The submersion of major ports like Kolkata and Shanghai would cause not only humanitarian tragedies, but also massive economic losses. Ice melt would destroy port infrastructure and disrupt intercontinental trade, as all ports would need to be rebuilt from scratch. The fishing industry would require complete restructuring. Rising seas would also inundate fertile agricultural lands, impacting agriculture and the global food economy. Climate Central in 2025 warns that glacier loss threatens tourism economies, cultural heritage, and local communities, with significant risks in mountainous regions. Economic impacts include disruptions to water supplies for billions of people relying on glaciers like the Himalayas and Andes. Alongside these disasters, scientists also point out potential environmental and economic benefits from a melting of Arctic ice caps and glaciers. Unfortunately, these are small consolations, as they cannot offset the immense losses. We can only hope they open opportunity for humanity to adapt to entirely new conditions. The list of opportunities is not short and will be discussed step by step. Many experts believe that by 2100, much of the Arctic Ocean will be ice-free, opening new maritime trade routes. A new route between Northern Europe and Asian countries through the Arctic Sea would be 40% shorter than the current route via the Suez Canal. Currently, the Arctic route is navigable only during a brief summer period and requires icebreaker escorts. Additionally, ice melt could enable hydrocarbon extraction in the Arctic, though this could exacerbate climate change if not managed sustainably. Greenland and Antarctica could become new sources of minerals, but environmental risks must be considered. The retreat of glaciers would provide opportunities to exploit new resources. For instance, the Arctic continent is one of the most promising reserves of hydrocarbons. Alaskan ice also conceals vast deposits of natural gas, oil, copper, and nickel. Currently inaccessible areas for subsoil resource extraction like Antarctica and Greenland could become humanity's lifeline after many mineral-rich regions are lost. However, experts emphasize that economic benefits must be balanced with conservation efforts, especially during the 2025 International Year of Glacier Preservation. After exploring the grim prospects that global warming could bring, we hope humanity will innovate and adopt clean, eco-friendly technologies to generate energy. We can halt and reverse global warming to save our planet. Humanity must live more responsibly and reduce carbon emissions to prevent future disasters. Fortunately, we still have time to make positive changes. All we need is the will and determination to strive for a better future, avoiding the dark scenario we've just explored in this video. Ideally, humanity will never have to witness what lies beneath Antarctica's ice. With 2025 data showing faster melting, the call for global action is more urgent than ever to protect glaciers and mitigate impacts. Campaigns like those from the United Nations emphasize that actions today can safeguard the future for generations to come. And so, we've journeyed together through a fascinating exploration scenario: what would happen if glaciers melted? On our channel. We hope this story not only helped you relax, but also spark moments of reflection about our incredible planet. Now, relax your body, take a deep breath, and let the images of shimmering glaciers fade into your dreams. Thank you for joining me in today's storytelling session. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to catch our next stories. Wishing you a restful sleep and sweet dreams until our next magical tale.